not us in Taiwan. Taiwan's effort to combat COVID-19 are a good story to tell. Beginning in January this year, my government was proactive, decisive, and transparent in combating the virus. Taiwan's success story is a well-told one, and I need not repeat it in detail here. But the most important lesson for us all is that Taiwan was able to become one of the safest places in the world during the pandemic, and we made sure of this while maintaining our democratic principles and freedom. The effectiveness of our democratic government, in spite of the pandemic, was made possible through the joint efforts of individual citizens, the business community, civil society, and the government. One well-known aspect of our response is the rapid expansion of the face mask production through extensive public and private collaborations. Taiwan is now the second largest face mask producer in the world, making 20 million masks per day. This achievement has allowed us to donate more than 51 million masks to more than 80 countries. Face masks was made in Taiwan can be seen from the White House to the streets of Europe, Japan, and many other places around the world. Taiwan's efforts do not stop here. We have research teams working with different partners in the United States and Europe to develop the vaccine. Our top research institute has developed a rapid diagnostic test that can detect the virus in just 15 minutes. We have also held numerous meetings to exchange knowledge and expertise regarding the prevention and control of COVID-19 trends in the international community. Taiwan can help was the motto for our efforts to support the global community in combating the pandemic. It is because we truly believe that helping ourselves enables us to help others, and that when we help ourselves, others will help us. This is also an important belief to maintain as we all face daunting security challenges in the Indo-Pacific region. Taiwan stands at the forefront of defending democracy from authoritarian aggression, and our commitment to democracy and its value is unwavering. As the President of Taiwan, I have worked to further accelerate the development of our asymmetrical capabilities to strengthen our national defense. Planning for substantive reforms of our military reserve and mobilization system is also well underway. Taiwan bears the ultimate responsibility for our own defense. My government has increased our defense budget in proportion to the military challenges we face. As Commander in Chief, it is my responsibility to ensure that our men and women in uniform have the equipment they need, and for the Taiwanese people to feel confident in our self-defense. We've also procured necessary equipment from the United States, including new F-16Bs, as well as missiles and other additions to the asymmetric capabilities. I am pleased that over the past 4 years, we have engaged in a regular process for ourselves, fulfilling our defense priorities. At the same time, the government has been committed to enhancing our domestic production capabilities. We are engaged in new aircraft and naval vessels production, because we believe that a robust defense posture can be better supported by a more competitive defense industry. As a result, our T5 Brave Eagle first took flight in June this year, and is one of the most advanced fifth-generation advanced jet trainers in the world. We are giving ourselves the tools to defend our home, our democracy, and our region. But no one country can accomplish the goals to maintain regional peace, stability, and security alone. They require far-reaching collaboration. This is where we need others' help, and this is where we can help each other. The rapid militarization of the South China Sea, increasing and frequent great zone tactics in the Taiwan Strait and East China Sea, coercive diplomacy views against countries and corporations, just to name a few, are all destabilizing the Indo-Pacific region. Furthermore, Hong Kong's recent past shows us that liberty and freedom can easily be lost if our efforts to protect them are not coordinated and sustained. It is time for like-minded countries and democratic trends in the Indo-Pacific region and beyond to discuss a framework to generate, sustain, and concerted efforts to maintain a strategic order that deters unilateral aggressive actions. We need a strategic order that encourages cooperation, transparency, and problem solving through dialogue, not threats of war. We need a strategy that avoids war, yet clearly conveys our resolve to protect our democracies. If the pandemic has taught us anything at all, it is that transparency and good governance prevail and best serve our people. The challenges we face during this era of COVID-19 go beyond public health and security. The pandemic has also severely disrupted national economies and international trade. One of the most important and painful lessons that we have learned is this: the global supply chains and trade mechanisms we have come to heavily rely on are highly fragile and are often subject to coercive measures by aggressive actors. However, the current situation gives us an opportunity to re-examine and reorganize economic and trade cooperation, and most importantly, adapt to restructuring supply chains and reinforce fair and non-coercive trade rules. Last week, during a groundbreaking visit by Czech Republic's Senate President to Taiwan, the American Institute in Taiwan, that is AIT, hosted the Forum on Supply Chain Restructuring, improving resilience among like-minded partners. Participants included representatives from the EU, Japan, the Czech Republic, and Taiwan. The discussions included the need for restructuring global supply chains to bring them closer to home or locate them in like-minded economies. Most importantly, these global supply chains should also be secure and free from political coercion. Taiwan and the United States also issued a joint declaration on 5G security. We agree that we should all be responsible for evaluating 5G hardware and software suppliers and supply chains to promote secure 5G architecture. Taiwan and the United States will also help raise awareness about the risks regarding 5G networks and work with like-minded partners to develop appropriate standards, guidelines, and best practices. This symbolizes a new chapter in a collaboration between like-minded partners who share the values and a new future for the rules-based order in Indo-Pacific and around the world. This alliance will safeguard the values we cherish most, that is, freedom, safety, human rights, and democracy. Let me conclude by saying that time and again, we have confronted great challenges, and yet we have always been able to weather these storms by believing in our values and working together. Only by doing so can we create a peaceful, prosperous, and secure Indo-Pacific region. Security and economic development cannot be separated. The lack of economic integration among these like-minded countries would really drive us to seek short-term solutions with those who do not share our values and beliefs. Divided we fall. Together we are more than the sum of our parts. One day the current pandemic will recede, but I sincerely believe that the solidarity we develop through our efforts to create a free, open and prosperous region will continue being a force in the future. Finally, I'd like to thank Chairman Paul for his invitation and all the participants who may come to join us. I wish you all the best and a successful forum. Thank you.
That this demonstration has made in the previous year. Thank you very much for attending this public ceremony. Ladies and gentlemen, due to the tight schedule of the Madam President, she has to leave us for the next agenda. It's wonderful if she would like to show the last interest for the audience and our representative. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Statement mentioned by the President Tsai, this is very challenging year in this year because the COVID-19 outbreak, but we still move forward by transparency and the very precise governance and create a new phenomenon of Taiwan to work for the world. The first one should be public health was successful in Taiwan, and then we try to recover the economy and industry, and then we create a very wonderful image of Taiwan. So this is on the way to fulfillment. Right now, say a lot of information today, we keep going to work together with other countries. So in terms of that, you can see what we design and architect for before this year. To echo facing the difficulties caused by the pandemic and the ongoing challenges ahead,凯达格兰论坛2020 Asia Pacific Security Dialogue architect the theme for the year of the geopolitical shift in the post-COVID-19 world, impact on Asia Pacific security, which indeed reflect the circumstances of the globe. Now there are in total the 2 keynote speeches and a 5 panel discussion, inviting more than 29 top academics, officials, and experts across the globe to share their insights and insights. The lineup was speakers from the countries including the US, Canada, Mexico, UK, France, Poland, Australia, New Zealand, India, Vietnam, Japan, Korea, and Philippines, etc. However, due to the difficulties of mobility, most of the international speakers and experts do not come to Taiwan on site joining this forum this year. Now this is era we call it new normal because recently a lot of the exhibition, the conference and event, international event, they have to do this both sides, on site and online, even on air together. Now this is a new model in Taiwan, not just Taiwan, maybe the other world. So the organizer this year also did the case by adopting on-site and online way to make this forum happen. So as you can see, what we different with what we had last year is our panel discussion and the panelists, they are in other countries. As you can see on the screen, we have a key speaker and the panelists in the following 2 days. And our moderator right here will sit alone on stage to moderate without other speakers, so they will be the phenomenon. So we will expect, but the Q&A session is still open to a floor. So every participant and audience in this chair, in this conference room, can also raise questions, and those questions will be responded by the speakers and the panelists, in other countries and overseas. By this new normal way, we hope to work together to promote Asian peace, security, and eventually enhance the well-being of all mankind. And today, the forum today is considered as one of the action plan. So this time is about 10 to 9:30, and our first keynote speech will begin in 9:30. And our first keynote speaker is H.R. McMaster, who is the former National Security Advisor of the United States of America, and also the chairman of the Center on Military and Political Power Foundation for the Defense of Democracy. But before we bring him to you, I would like to invite the moderator, Yin Chengwei, who is the president of the Institute for National Defense and Security Research, Republic of China, Taiwan, to introduce this very distinguished speaker and the topic. So this time I would like to invite the President Yin Chengwei to come on stage to say a few words for us. Thank you, please.
Good morning, everyone. It truly is a pleasure to welcome everyone to the 2020 Asia-Pacific Security Dialogue sponsored by the and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Before I begin a brief introduction, the Honorable H.R. McMaster, let me make one quick introduction. We do not have the title of President at the Institute. CEO, the Chief Executive Officer, and the President this time out there. But this important security dialogue takes place annually, and the Institute of National Defense and Security Research is truly honored to be able to organize it this year. We're very glad to see that despite the corona pandemic, this gathering of distinguished like-minded thought leaders is as robust as this year. I want to offer a special thank you to all those joining us on video conferencing from far away. Thank you for staying up at a late hour to be part of our conversation in the next 2 days. We have made great efforts to invite thought leaders from across the globe. We are certain that the discussions will be worthy of getting up at the odd hours. Therefore, it is with great privilege that I'm introducing our keynote speaker this morning. This gentleman really needs no introduction, but let me give it a shot. Not only is he a highly decorated soldier, but he also holds a doctorate in history. The Honorable H.R. McMaster was the 26th Assistant to the President of the United States for National Security. Dr. McMaster served as a commissioned officer in the United States Army for 34 years before retiring as a Lieutenant General in June 2018. He is currently a fellow at both the Hoover Institute and at the Freeman Spogli Institute for International Studies at Stanford University. Before he entered the White House, Dr. McMaster designed the future Army of the United States as the director of the Army Capabilities Integration Center and the Deputy Commanding General of the U.S. Army Training and Doctrine Command. The Honorable McMaster has fought wars in the Persian Gulf, Afghanistan, and Iraq. The war he was too young to fight in Vietnam, he wrote about instead. It is considered a seminal work on the Vietnam War. His latest book is already on pre-order, due out later this month. It is called Battlegrounds, the Fight to Defend the Free World. The book's official pitch states that it is a powerful call for, quote, citizens of the free world to transcend the betrayal of partisan political discourse, better educate themselves about the most significant challenges to national and international security and work together to secure peace and prosperity for future generations. End quote. How fitting for our security forum that the author is here to give us this morning's keynote. Let's put our hands together to welcome the Honorable H.R. McMaster.
All right, the sound we have picked up on sorry, so our staff is trying to deal with the issues. All right, Mr. McMaster, can you hear me? It's on Taipei. Okay, good. We hear good, but we have tried to down the difficulty deal with the. All right, good. Thank you. Now, good morning. Thank you. Yeah, proceed.
You know, I mean, old generals with technology. It's not a good mix. So what? Thank you, Mr. Chenway. One more introduction. Thank you so much, and thanks to all of you for the privilege of being with you, at least virtually. And it's a real privilege to be with you so soon after Secretary Azar visited. And also the passing of the Taiwan Travel and Taipei Acts, which really affected a sea change, I think, in U.S.-Taiwan relations. I was very happy to see the recent declassification of communication behind the 1982 six assurances, as well as Assistant Secretary David Stilwell's public distinction between Washington's one-China policy from Beijing's one-China principle. Also, the affirmation of continued arms sales and other diplomatic affirmations to counter Chinese Communist Party threats and aggression. So I'm going to try some Chinese. I'm not going to do a good job, so I hope that you'll cut me some slack here. But Moshe said, Midway Wei, Jun Wei King, or the interest of the people is higher than that of the ruler. The Taiwanese people and your successful democracy embody this original thought and his teachings. And the great strength and effectiveness of your government, most recently displayed in the way that you coped with the COVID-19 pandemic, reveals that the nature and policies of the Chinese Communist Party, or the CCP, are incompatible with true Chinese values. Chairman Xi Jinping and party leaders, I believe, are driven by fear of losing control, a fear based in part on their knowledge that their government is founded on the opposite of Mao Zedong's teachings. A system in which the party is more important than the people drives policies that afflict the Chinese people from Xinjiang to Hong Kong, as well as threaten Taiwan and the Indo-Pacific region as a whole. So in the post-pandemic era, the potential for clashes in the region, I believe, will increase as the CCP strengthens an internal system that stifles human freedom and exports its authoritarian power and undermines the rules-based international order. So, to preserve peace, the United States and like-minded partners in the region must convince the CCP leadership that they cannot accomplish their objectives through military force. This year's conference comes at a critical time, as more and more people globally are recognizing the pernicious danger that the CCP model poses to free and open societies. China's actions in 2020 are finally ending what had been willful ignorance concerning the scope of the threat that the Chinese Communist Party poses to the world. So let's consider just a short highlight reel from 2020. A pandemic that could have been contained had the CCP not covered up the initial outbreak in Wuhan. Then, heavy-handed wolf warrior diplomacy that added insult to injury Well, the party's offenses extended far beyond the virus and this war of words. The People's Liberation Army used the COVID-19 pandemic as cover for aggression. From the South China Sea, where its Navy and Marine militias stepped up attacks to advance specious territorial claims, to the East China Sea, where the PLA and Navy increased incursions into Japanese territorial waters near the Senkaku Islands, and to China's Himalayan border with India, where the PLA violated the line of actual control multiple times in June 2020 in Washington, pointing Indian soldiers to death, and of course renewed those attacks last week. Taiwan, as it always does, received special attention. The PLA conducted nighttime drills in the Taiwan Strait. Its fighter and bomber aircraft conducted threatening overflights. And the Chief of the Joint Staff Department, Li Zuosheng, vowed to resolutely smash any separatist plots or actions. And 2 months ago, in a particularly callous rejection of international agreements and rule of law, the CCP implemented a national security law in Hong Kong to end the one country, two systems agreement and suppress freedom of expression and rule of law there. Throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, Chinese aggression in cyberspace has been as brazen as its actions in the physical world. In the midst of the crisis, the PLA and the Ministry of State Security attacked hospitals, pharmaceutical companies, and medical research facilities developing COVID-19 therapies and vaccines. Australia was hit with massive cyber attacks after just calling for a World Health Organization investigation into the origins of the pandemic. The attacks demonstrated that the CCP was willing to perpetuate suffering abroad to ensure that China emerged from the crisis in a position of relative advantage economically and psychologically. CCP leaders took aggressive actions on the Chinese mainland as well. The COVID-19 pandemic serves as a catalyst for expanding their surveillance regime. A health code designed to individuals through the use of surveillance and artificial intelligence technologies augmented other forms of social control, such as the social credit score. The social credit score, of course, is designed to co-opt the population into conformity and to coerce recalcitrant individuals who believe that they should have a say in how they're governed. The brilliance of the social credit score is that it mobilizes a person's social networks against her or him. The social credit score uses cutting-edge technology to co-opt and coerce people into reinforcing the state's draconian system of population control. China's minorities bear the brunt of this technology-enabled repression as the CCP continues a campaign of cultural genocide against its mostly Muslim ethnic Uyghur population. Artificial intelligence technologies access an integrated joint operations platform that contains biomedical data gathered during mandatory physicals and other data to generate lists of suspicious people who are then rounded up and sent to concentration camps. More than 1 million people have been interned. Prisoners are subjected to systematic brainwashing and forced labor. Many males are sterilized and many females are forced to have abortions or have contraceptive devices implanted into their bodies. In certain regions, the combination of these actions have resulted in a reduction of the Uyghur birth rate by 60%. Academic research, investigative journalism, and conferences like the Technologic Forum may be the best way to counter the aggression of the Chinese Communist Party. The party co-opts individuals, companies, countries, and organizations with economic and financial enticements and then uses its influence to coerce them into supporting their policies. the part conceals the nature of servile and corrupt relationships they foster to hide their true intentions. Exposing the informal imperialism that the party uses to advance its hegemonic agenda at others' expense is the first step in competing effectively to protect our free and open societies. My forthcoming book and the research that I've done over the past 2 years at the Hoover Institution's China Global Sharp Power Initiative, the Foundation for Defense of Democracy's Center for Military and Political Power, and the Hudson Institute's Japan Chair, aims to help expose the party's intentions and the threat it poses, as well as to encourage multinational efforts to compete effectively and defend the free world. We must, of course, follow up on President Tsai Ing-wen's efforts to strengthen Taiwan's defenses, such that the CCP and the PLA know that they cannot succeed if they act on their threats. But all of us here today can help counter aggression and foster peace in a post-pandemic world by amplifying Taiwan's voice in 3 ways as a counter to CCP aggression. We should amplify Taiwan's voice in academic and research institutions to counter the party's use of censorship, espionage, theft of intellectual property, and surveillance of and intimidation of students on academic campuses. The CCP gets away with egregious behavior abroad because it corrupts individuals, companies, research institutions, and academic institutions with foreign investment, donations, illegal bribes, and other benefits, such as access to China's heavily monitored academic facilities. Espionage occurs behind the veneer of academic research and partnerships with institutions such as China's 7 Sons of National Defense Universities, acting as fronts for and extensions of the People's Liberation Army and the Ministry of State Security. Closer ties between American universities and their Taiwanese counterparts could counterbalance the CCP's influence on U.S. campuses. Second, we should amplify Taiwan's voice in international fora and on vital global issues. Taiwan's success as a thriving democracy and free market economy provides a powerful counter to the Beijing's authoritarian mercantilist model. Taiwan's example in the area of global health is now well known. Taiwan is also a leader in taking on the interconnected problems of energy, climate, environment, and food and water security. As Beijing continues to build coal-fired plants at home and abroad, Taiwan went from industrial to green in a matter of decades. Taiwan's example can foster change in growing economies across the Indo-Pacific and beyond. And Taiwan's factories, which are increasingly environmentally conscious, provide a sustainable and transparent alternative to cheap or secretive and environmentally destructive alternatives on the mainland. Third, we should amplify Taiwan's voice to counter the CCP's co-option of American media and Hollywood. At the very least, Americans should know that Matt Damon did not save ancient China from monsters. It is time to broaden the reach of Taiwanese news platforms, in particular those written in English, such as the Taipei Times and the Taiwan Journal. The need is urgent, as Hong Kong's traditional place as a main source of English language news in the region is now, sadly, editorially compromised. In particular, Taiwanese publications might help educate Americans and other foreign audiences about the history of Straits relations, as the Straits and the South China Sea are focal points of geopolitical tensions. So, as President Tsai discussed in her remarks last year, Taiwan's voice remains critical to fostering cooperation with like-minded partners across the Indo-Pacific to advance peace, prosperity, and stability, and counter authoritarian exploitation of free and open societies. Taiwan's voice and example is growing stronger among what my friend, Deputy National Security Advisor Matt Pottinger described as our community of citizen-centric governance, as opposed to regime-centric governance. Governance based on Mengxi's truth that the interests of the people are greater than the interests of the ruler. Thank you so much for the privilege of being with you, and I really look forward to the conversation.
Thank you very much, Dr. McMaster. Thank you for that very forceful and powerful speech. Yes, to amplify Taiwan's voice in every way possible is something that we can all begin to make efforts to realize. If my understanding is correct, I do have you until 10 Taipei time. So if with your permission, I'd like to open the floor and gather a few questions at a time, and see if you can answer some of these questions. Would that be okay with you?
Yes, thank you. I look forward to it.
Thank you very much. Yes, then I would like to open the floor to those who are who want to ask questions. Please state your name and affiliation, and as well as make your questions succinct and to the point. For those of you who raise your hand, our staff will be passing the microphone to you. Anyone? I know everybody gets nervous in front of Dr. McMaster, but it's okay. Yes.
Thank you very much. And I'd like to ask you to share some of your personal experience when you served at the National Security Council from the